Hi, my name is Dane, the founder of On a Map, and this is an update to the board. Hi, Chris and other members of the board on the 8th of July, 2025. I'm going to start by talking about something that you probably aren't expecting here in this update, but it's very important, and that is why is On a Map actually kind of brilliant? Then I'm going to get into some of the things that you're here for. So what have I done and what has happened in recent weeks in On a Map? The results of that. We're going to talk about the sort of next steps in the path ahead. We're going to talk about the options for focus for me and On a Map over the coming months. We'll briefly talk about which ones are the most relevant and which ones I'll focus on and choose. We'll talk about the path, the best path, so that will be the best path that we'll go through. And lastly, we'll finish up by talking about what will come next for the next board update. So as you know, the On a Map is a mapping app that's kind of unique, and it fits into a space that very few other apps really fit into. So firstly, you're probably aware of typical mapping apps like Google Maps or Google Earth, or the kind of apps that you might have on your phone. And they typically allow you to search for something. And when you search, you get a whole bunch of results, but just one set of results at a time. And if you search again, you get different results. You can use them for navigation and things like that. But they don't really allow you to have multiple different layers of data or results at one time. So they're useful, but they're not really useful for research or exploration of data. Then you get mapping apps that are much more powerful and complex and let you do lots of things with data, especially data that you bring yourself. And those are GIS apps. And this is apps like ArcGIS and QGIS, and those are desktop apps. But these days, there's also a lot of browser-based apps as well, like Felt and Atlas. Really great tools to load up your own data. You've got to bring your own data and then manipulate it and analyze it and compare different data sets. And those could be points of data or clouds or polygons, shapes, all kinds of things like that. But they, for the most part, require you to use your own data or to connect with the source of data that you know how to connect with already. Sometimes, though, they do provide their own data sets. Like they might have a data set of lakes or rivers or hospitals or something like that. But those data sets that they provide are predefined fixed data sets for a specific period of time and specific results. They don't typically provide an interface to choose which data you want. They're data sets that you can use that happen to be in the app. There's one more thing that I should point out that is like On a Map, and that is the big GIS apps like ArcGIS and QGIS do have plugins that you can use. And those are pretty cool. The plugins are often built by external developers, and they allow you to fetch data or manipulate data in certain ways depending on what the developer of the plugin wanted you to do. The downside of those is that each one is made by a different person or a different team. So they're very inconsistent. Some of them are great, but some of them are very lacking. And when I did my research, a lot of the organizations that I wanted data from, for example, iNaturalist and some others, the plugins were just incomplete or unreliable, and they don't provide a really great user interface to fetch this data, query it, and bring it into the app. So they're a good potential, but it doesn't make sense for me to focus on those sorts of plugins for GIS apps. So On a Map is kind of unique. There's nothing else that does something quite like this. I like to think of it like Zapier for maps. Have you heard of Zapier? It's kind of an app that lets you connect one app to another app. So for example, let's say you have a form app and somebody fills in that form, and then you want that data from their submission to go into a spreadsheet. Well, Zapier makes that quite easy. And that's just an example of two apps. But typically it's used for automations or workflows where lots of things can happen. So there's a trigger, something happens, maybe somebody filling in a form. Then there's conditions, like only in these certain circumstances do this, and then this, and then this. So it's kind of like if this, then that. So Zapier is a pretty cool app. A lot of people know about it and use it. And On a Map can be like that for maps. It kind of is becoming that, where it makes it really easy to connect to data sets, data sources, organizations. It gives you a really nice form to fill in and choose what data you want. And as I explained earlier, there's no other mapping apps that I've come across that really focus on this. So OnAMap is important. It has huge potential, and I'm really excited to keep working on it in the next weeks, months, years. All right, so recently I decided that I needed to get out of my comfort zone. What I was doing is I was spending a huge amount of time just making OnAMap better in terms of coding and design. I was thinking of new features, thinking of new integrations, doing some research, and then building them. And I was the only user of OnAMap until very recently. It was comfortable, it was fun, I was enjoying it, and I knew I was building something great, but I wasn't doing the most important thing, which is getting more people to use it and making it more valuable for the first group of users. So I decided to change that. What I did was I created a promotion and I decided to offer the first 50 people that sign up to OnAMap to get a free user account, a premium user account forever. Which means, so this would be the lowest paid tier when we start offering paid tiers on OnAMap. And those users, for as long as OnAMap exists, they'll get to use that tier. Now, it is, of course, there will be a cost associated with that to us because it's the services that and the premium data sets that they'll get access to will cost. However, those users they're the people who are really passionate about this kind of thing. They're willing to try it out in its early stages, and they're going to give feedback. And they can, if I really make sure that it's great for them as a great user experience, they can become advocates. They can tell other people about it, bring their teams, their departments, their organizations on board to also use OnAMap. So I posted this promo to Reddit, a specific subreddit, the GIS subreddit. And I should just note that while people who use GIS software are not necessarily the target audience because they're able to use this really powerful software that can do the same thing in theory as OnAMap, they're quite different, as I explained earlier. And OnAMap can be a useful tool in their pocket for quick exploratory or fun research before they get to the phase in their work where they need to use their GIS software. So made this offer, got the first 50 quite quickly within, I think it was about first 2 hours, got the first 50 applicants. And then within about a week, we had around 250 applicants, which is amazing. So a week later, 250 people that had actually filled in the application form, which had quite a few questions. Questions like, where do you work? What kind of job do you have? What kind of organization do you work for? And what do you want to use OnAMap for? So there's probably a lot of people who considered using it, saw the form and decided not to. So of all of those people, 250 actually went through all of the process to sign up, which is really exciting. So then, following that, over the next couple of days, I started sending out emails to tell everyone to set expectations, to say over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be bringing in groups, inviting people to start with their user accounts on OnAMap. Keep in mind that you can use OnAMap without a user account, but there's certain things that you can't do, such as save the map that you're currently working on. So you need a user account and be logged in to do that. So I sent out these emails and I started inviting the users in small groups, first 3, first 5, first 10, and so on. And there was a lot of issues as I expected to solve, especially with the onboarding process. There's emails about valid verification of email addresses and welcome emails and password reset emails and all of the user flows that go with this. I'm using a pretty cool app called MailJet to send out all the emails, both the bulk emails, the marketing type emails, as well as what are called the transactional emails. Those are the ones that I just described, verify your email address, for example. So it lets me design those emails and then send them out through the app, which is really a really convenient, powerful feature. So now it's been about 2 weeks since that, and I've got all 250-ish people on board. They've all been invited to start their user account, and I'll very shortly tell you the actual numbers of how many people have done what. But all in all, this is very exciting. And since then, I've been just fixing a whole lot more issues that have come up. There's a lot of, OnAMap already has a huge number of features. It can do a heck of a lot. And there's a huge amount of testing that needs to go into the whole process to make sure that people can't break it intentionally or by mistake and abuse it. And, when there's issues, I'm going to fix them. And that's what I'm doing. Okay, so some results quite quickly. In terms of sending out emails using the JotForm app, in total, there were 251 applications. So that's how many that's how many people applied. Of those, there was a second follow-up email with the second form where I was asking the people to tell me what organizations they would like OnAMap to integrate with. So these are potential future integrations, and I had 11 people filling in that form. It's not very many, unfortunately, but perhaps more will still fill it in. And each of them could suggest up to 3 organizations that they would like it to be integrated with. The only organization that was requested multiple times over was USGS, the United States, I think it's Geographical Survey or a service. There was another email and another form that I asked people to fill in, which was what is a map that you've created that you're really proud of that tells a story, but nobody has filled that one in yet. And there's one more form which is quite useful on the website to contact me or to report a bug. And nobody has used that form yet. But it's very prominently displayed throughout the app, so hopefully people will start to use the app and fill that one in as they do. In terms of sending out emails using MailJet, it says that I sent 930 emails across the various marketing campaigns, the email campaigns, and the transactional emails. So 930. And I have an open rate of 65%. So that's approximately 2/3 of everyone who got sent an email opened the email, which is very good. Typical marketing bulk mailers like email newsletters get an open rate, I think, of around 20%. So 65% is very good. Of course, these are people who did just recently sign up. And then I have a click rate of 25%. So 1 in 4 people who opened the email clicked on one of the links. I do wish that was a bit higher, but I think what might explain that is a lot of people are opening the email, reading it, and then deciding to take action later instead of taking action immediately. So perhaps that number will climb over time. Lastly, regarding Supabase and actual user interactions with OnAMap, we have so far 23 verifications. So this is 23 people who have verified the email address and actually gone through the process of signing up. And of those, 20 created their actual user profile. That's the last step of the onboarding process, is to create your profile by adding a username and a password and so on. So 20 out of the 23 successfully completed the process, which is great. That number was much lower to start with. So I had a lot of bug fixing to do to get it to that. And I did follow up with a lot of people in the process, emailing them saying, hey, I saw you got started, but you didn't complete the process. Did you have any trouble? And a few of them, people got back to me about that and were very positive, and we're very excited to use OnAMap. And so far, only one user has saved their map by being logged in. So hopefully there'll be a bunch more that we can start to look at what people are creating with OnAMap. Okay, let's talk about the path ahead. Where can I focus over the next coming days, weeks, months, and years? Let's talk about users first. So there's a couple of different types of potential users for OnAMap. The first is business. So this might be people that are working in logistics, for example, or sales, or anything that revolves around selling to certain areas or delivering and having customers in different areas. The second group is non-profit organizations. So this might be like conservation or climate change or something like that. Next group is government. So they might use this for service delivery or tackling issues that come up like infrastructure issues or outages. And another group is academia. So this might be students, undergrads or postgraduate students doing their research, their theses, that kind of thing, or academics, researchers doing really detailed, hardcore academic research. I think of those groups, I think it makes the most sense for me to focus on university graduates for a number of reasons. Firstly, because, as you know, I work within the University of Cambridge. I work for the University of Cambridge as a part-time job. And so I have a way to relatively easily get in front of students and speak to them. And also the same for lecturers and researchers. So that's a really good way for me to get in. And also postgrad students are a really good user group here because they're often required to use GIS tools or other software to do their work. But they often want to answer questions before they get to that point. They're forming the ideas for their theses or their research, or just for their work, their homework or their studies. And so being able to add things on a map will be really helpful to them. I'm already speaking to a group of students and researchers in the geography department at the University of Cambridge. I can give you more details, in future about that. But I've already had a meeting with them and going to have another one, a follow-up meeting with them soon. They're all really excited to use it. Now, let's talk about goals. And funding specifically. So students are never going to really be a paying group of users. Students don't have a huge amount of money and they don't represent a definitive group, a defined group that I can market to if I wanted to. But students do have an interest in using it, and they have influence over their lecturers, and the lecturers have influence over the departments and faculties that they're part of. So by getting a huge number of students using OnOmap, I can encourage departments eventually to actually see the value in this and buy it as a software to use for all of their students. So that's an avenue that I think makes a lot of sense to focus on first. And because I can get in front of those students quite easily. In the short term, I think it makes, in terms of like types of users, I think it makes a lot of sense to focus on and sectors is environmental, students studying environmental causes and climate change causes and things like that, for a number of reasons. Number one, because I have a personal interest and love for the environment, and I know quite a bit about it, and because I already have good integrations for iNaturalist and GBIF and Global Forest Watch. So it makes a lot of sense to focus on that sort of group of users first, and then slowly expand it into different related groups of users. So where should I actually focus my time and effort? I'm going to send you or put up a picture of a slide from our presentation deck, which is quite interesting because it shows two columns. The first column is, what does OnOmap look like if I run it as a business? And then the second column is, what does OnOmap look like if I run it as a sort of project, an initiative that's funded? And so as you can see in the first column as a business, there's a lot more things I'll need to focus on as businesses do. And that revolves around revenue, creating sales and making a profit, but everything else that supports that. So it's marketing, it's admin, it's finance, it's HR, it's legal. There's just so many things that I'll need to do if I run OnOmap as a business. Whereas if I run it as a sort of non-profit organization, especially if it has backing through academia, then I can appeal to, it's possible to get grants or funding that way. And then it's very different. OnOmap would then be a sort of non-profit organization, but it allows me to focus much more on making sure I'm getting it in front of the right users and that it's really, really useful for them. So I think it makes a lot of sense for me to focus in that direction. And one more thing that I need to talk about is just in terms of team. As you know, at the moment, I'm building OnOmap by myself, but I'm very much open to potentially having a co-founder join the team, as well as other team members. I don't want to hire too early, as a lot of really wise startup founders say, don't hire until it hurts. So for now, building OnOmap myself and designing it and then doing everything related to it is working, but I'm very much open to the idea of expanding the team based on funding and grants and that kind of thing. All right, so what are my next steps? Firstly, I think I need to speak to students at the University of Cambridge, ideally within a certain department that I have in mind, perhaps the Geography, Environmental Sciences department, perhaps during their lunch break or in the lunch area, where the people are available and open and interested to try something out. They can answer some questions, especially questions that I've learned to ask from the amazing book, The Mom Test, and just generally give some feedback. They can try out OnOmap, see if it works for them, see if it would be useful to them. So that's field research that I really need to do. So that would be the first step, but I can't do that immediately because at the moment everyone's on summer break. So when summer break is over and students have returned back to university, that'll be something that I'll do in a couple of weeks' time. Before then though, I think it makes a lot of sense for me to speak to existing users. So of those 250 people who signed up for OnOmap, I have their details, I know who they are, and I know what they're interested in. And I can reach out to those that are more relevant, that are in a specific group of users that are most likely to find benefit from OnAMap right now because of the plugins that we've already got. And so reach out to them by email or LinkedIn and ask them some questions. How's it going? What do they use currently? What's their experience like? And suggest or invite them to have a one-on-one chat with me. And then thirdly and lastly, I think if you think about Zapier, for example, going back to that, it's not really helpful if it's only has a couple of integrations. It had to have hundreds of integrations before Zapier was really, really useful. It's very much a network effect. The more it has, the more useful it is to everybody who's using it. So I do need to focus more on integrations and building more. Currently, OnAMap has around 20 integrations. Of those, about 4 of them are really fleshed out. They're nice, useful, they have a lot of features. The form that you get to fill in is quite comprehensive in choosing which data that you want to fetch from that organization. So 4 out of 20 are really worth using, and then the others are all more or less proof of concept. So I need to really expand that out. The ones that are proof of concept, just add a bit more features to them, make them more useful, and then add a lot more plugins. I have a lot of examples, a lot of ideas for ones, and I think the very first one will be USGS. So those 3 things are going to be what I focus on over the coming weeks. All right, so for the next board meeting, which we're going to have update that I'll send to you in about 4 weeks' time, 3 things that we'll go through. Number 1 is updates from today. So everything I've talked about that we're working on, I'm going to give you updates on how it's going, what the numbers look like, and so on. Number 2, we'll talk about partners and competitors. So that's other GIS apps, that's other organizations in the space, in the mapping space, and related organizations, and just people that that I've come across that are potential partners that we can work with. And then thirdly, we'll talk about the big one, money. So we'll talk about revenue, grants, funding, profit, and costs as well. So all of the money related to OnAMap. I hope you're excited. I'm really excited about OnAMap, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.